Hello everyone, welcome back to our videos for the bone reading for this month of August. It's time to see what we've got for this period that's coming up, and I know that one of the things that's happening this coming weekend, after I post this, is going to be Between the Veils, which is a local pagan convention that is trying to fill the void and continuing to talk about what we are in connection with spirit about. And we're also coming up on Loomis, which is our Lunastad, which is a harvest festival, as we draw to the end of summer, which will be in September, with the equinox. So let's go ahead and get the spirits in and see what they've got to say for the month of August, as so much is still going on. All right, so we've cast the bones, and we've got a much more clustered spread, but we'll go ahead and start with the dice. And we have the 9th house, and the 9th house is about travel, study, higher learning, moral, and ethics. Now, that means we're going to be applying to the aspects of how do we travel, or are there people traveling to see us? Are we studying to learn, and the higher learning? And again, the highest learning that exists is in nature itself. But we've got to be open to learning. And with this month, we've also got schools starting back up, as both students from kindergarten up to college are making their way back to school. And in these interesting times, which we need to be very cautious of. In addition, we've got 2 Adinkra cards this time. So our first one that comes up is the crossing division made of the Adinkra cloth before printing. And if you look at any Adinkra cloth, there is a series of lines. Each of those, within that series of lines, is usually going to be the Adinkra symbol. And they're kind of like either the structure of the story that the Adinkra is telling. May it be a paragraph or a chapter. But each line is a way of knowing that a section has ended. Now, in addition, we also have the big ochre, or dried ochre, remaining greatness, superiority, and supremacy, a well-meaning person. So this one also, in relation to this, is showing that there's going to be boundaries that need to be crossed, and boundaries that are going to be crossed mainly because there's time for some stories to change. And that comes with traveling. That comes with beginning to understand more about the world. It comes with also changing and recognizing that the issue about morals is probably a lot smaller than it's always been led to believe. We have much more areas of dealing with ethics than we do with morals. And I'm not saying morals don't exist. It's just they're not as many and not as hardly defined as we might think. So, what does this all mean as we look at our bones themselves? And as you notice, we've got the clustering. And so this one is work, this one is social, that one is home. So looking at the work bone, and as I've always said, the work is more than just what we do to pay the rent. It's what we're here to do. And a number of our purposes that we came into the world with are also changing because the world has also changed. So we're not always going to be working on the exact same purpose we started out with. And in some cases, the purpose we started out finished. So now we move on to the next one. And there's going to be a bunch of that happening in some ways. And there's a lot of support bones around that. A lot of inspiration that's coming into it. Now, it also forms an A, or at least this sort of peak with the social bone. And there's elements of what we're doing here for purpose that also connect with society, with our social bones. And that social aspect, because there's a lot of things that are being continued to call into question about how and why and what we're looking at socially. One of the issues that is coming up very much right now is the whole monkeypox. And there is increasing more recognition that monkeypox does not stay in one particular group. It is spreading. And if we look at any part of history, any part of any disease that has come up in the world, it does not stay in one area. it is capable of migrating. These last several years has been an example of a disease that it's been found worldwide, and the monkeypox is no different. It will spread to any and every other person because we are all capable of receiving it. It has nothing to do with whose moral fiber is there. It has nothing to do with whether or not we are ethical in how we live. It is a disease, much like COVID, that can affect everyone. And we're looking at almost an apex moment with what's coming on between our work purpose and our social elements. How aware are we being? Are we staying trapped in the lines? Are we not traveling to study and learn? Are we just staying where we think is this small world? Which is what this also brings up about the big okra and being able to greatness. And greatness does not mean that all eyes are us and that we're nothing but the main character in the story. Because fundamentally, we may operate from the idea that we are the main character, we are the greatest person, and so forth, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it doesn't mean that we won't necessarily be the villain in somebody else's story. You may be the hero in yours, but you might be the villain in others. And it's learning to accept and flex with that. Not everyone is capable or has been able to show that ability. And we may be coming upon an apex of that, where there's going to be that divide. And it's how we have that inspiration and function with it. And that's part of what we're also seeing here with the quartz piece as well as the copper piece. These are places that are about our reflection and our chance that Spirit is giving us to make different choices, operate in a different way. And you notice that it's much more related to the social bone. And so our social, and again, understanding is requiring us to travel, or travel smartly, travel with respect to those around us. And in traveling is to also understand what we carry to the place and what we carry away from that place. And any of the diseases that we're seeing in the world have been carried by someone moving between those places, both to and from. No one is immune to the idea of being a carrier. Now, how they act in respect to that, and that can be, again, often gets listed as being an idea of what our morals are, but they're also about our ethics. Is it ethical to not say that you've been exposed to something? Is it ethical for you to want to just get home at any cost? Well, guess what? You said any cost, so there's going to be a cost, and you may not like what that cost is, but you had an opportunity to not encourage it by asking questions. And most often, questions about yourself. And that's what's going on here with the shell when it crosses over the rib bone. It's what are we being inspired to ask ourselves? And in doing so, we become the well-mannered person, the great okra. When we ask ourselves what's going on there, we find ourselves also knowing where we are in the story, what part of the chapter, what are the lines that we need to keep, and what are the lines we need to get rid of, or the ones that we need to cross. And again, we have the solitary home bone over here, but it's focused much more towards the work. And so that aspect of our purpose is going to be the aspect of how do we rest and how do we work together to make the home someplace that is a place that we want to travel to and travel from. How are we actually studying to know that our home hasn't also morphed? Just because a place has been useful for all this time doesn't mean that it's going to be there forever. It may mean that it's time to move on. And there is also energy in learning to rebuild and build anew. Do you build the same thing in the same place, or do you adapt? And as we deal with the global climate change, we're going to have to start adapting how we construct and why we construct things. And this means inviting in the knowledge of other places that have been able to deal with environments of that nature. And that's about the learning. We've got to be open to the learning. And all that is coming back together here. Now we've got some other stuff on the edges, like there. We're going to be hitting some new bits of knowledge, and that's going to influence the home. And as we've also said, the shells here at the edge, and it's the internal work that's going on. And we've got internal work that we need to start understanding so that we're better able to do the work that we're here for. All of this is at play as we move forward in the month of August. So, hopefully that's helpful for everyone, and hopefully you'll have a good August and you will be safe both from COVID and from monkeypox. So, use your head, people, and make sure your head is informed with the choices that have brought us here before. Because the failure to recognize that all diseases can affect all people has led to a lot of death. And we don't want to keep having that. And it's also led to a lot of suffering, which we also want to minimize. So, the ancestors, the Orishas, the Loas, the gods, all want us to be the best possible ancestors we can be. And that comes by understanding where are those boundaries and how are we living to be the best and most well-mannered person within the boundaries that we know we need to be in, and when to break past them to show our new heights. Ashe.